talk about different things. I have a background in the arts, and people sometimes don't understand the way it is in economic, how it can benefit the city economically. They think, oh, poor starving artists and poor with this. I mean, I've heard all sorts of things since we discussed this in so many ways. And I mentioned before, I know publicly on the record, when I traveled to Chattanooga recently and met with them, and I told you about my travels there, the difference between it was they had, number one, huge public buy-in, not literally financially buy-in, but buy-in in support of it. And number two, they had huge philanthropic efforts and a lot of nonprofit organizations that came together to do the projects they did and help the city by doing exactly what we're talking about here today. And as I've said before, again for the record, Palm Beach and West Palm is where fine art is sold, but Lake Worth has always been where it is made. And it's something that our artists are very proud of here in this community. And I think that this is an ability. I know that we've talked with everyone from the Cultural Council to, there's a lot of exciting things happen. I happen to be a huge Chihuly fan. I remember when the show came, I think, to the Norton Gallery several years back, and I wanted to pitch a tent in there and just sleep there. But it's just very exciting to see this organization come together. I've been very impressed with the presentation that you've done today, and also the background and time you've taken to present. And the two important things from another whole perspective, and sorry, Ben Zeichen folks, but let's just talk about it, is that questions have come to me from, you mentioned one thing earlier, and Dolores, and that was one of the big questions that people had, if they're not paying taxes. I just want to nip some of these questions here in the bud. But you said that they're paying, the city will be receiving the tax value equivalent. I just want to make sure that the public knows this, some of the other benefits that it will be. That it's not tax exempt, but they will not be paying taxes, but they will be paying the tax value equivalent.
Yes, ma'am. They will be paying, actually, the assessed value as of 2013, which is 343,687 times the CPI index.
Okay.
And that floats from year to year to year. And that is what we considered was equitable.
Okay, and then the question to that note is that if it was taxes, it would be in a CRA district, so then, therefore, is this money going to be going to the city or to the CRA in the city?
To the city.
To the city, okay, I just want to clear that up. And also, if we could just discuss the benchmarks for performance.
Those were what you saw in his graph, and those are the outside benchmarks. Also, what we also wrote in the contract was that they would be eligible, like when they hire 10 people. After the first year, they would also be able to qualify for the electric incentives program as any other business. But to keep them on track for that, they will submit to the city those 10 stubs just showing me that they have met those benchmarks of hiring the 10 people to get that discounted electric rate. They will be responsible for all of their own utilities, all of their own insurance, all of those things that was made it very, very clear in the contract.
Okay, I just want to make sure we discuss those for the record, okay? As I'm sure you all know, as I've talked about the arts for a long time, I'm very excited about this project. And I think that it's going to be, as you mentioned, a good shot in the arm for the city, and I'm in support. We've got a motion on the floor in a second. Public comment? I'm sorry, Vice
Just
Mayor?
one more thing as we're going through the particulars, just to address some of the concerns of the community. The term of this lease is how many years?
19 and 364 days.
Okay.
Yes.
It's underneath 20 years.
Consistent with our charter.
And again, it's also relevant to the benchmarks too that are on a contractual basis. Okay, public comment. We've got a motion in a second, right, Pam?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Mr. Tim, followed by Honey Bryan.
Peter Tim, yes, I guess I feel like the Grinch who stole Christmas, because here I go again. You say they say they're going to pay taxes in 13 and 14. And And then I didn't understand it and I read it twice. Still didn't understand it. You just explained it, I still don't understand it. Could you tell me how many dollars they're gonna give us and how many years they're gonna give it to us for? And they will be paying, they are a not-for-profit. Unfortunately, the city of Lake Worth is not a not-for-profit. We have got bills we've got to pay. We have got to stop giving away Lake Worth to any outfit that comes in here that promises the moon. And we just give. We give to the CRA, we give to anybody, you name it, we give to you. For property, sure, we don't have to collect taxes. Yes, we do. I want to know how much rent they're going to pay for these two buildings. I believe it's going to be $0.00. Again, the city of Lake Worth is going to lose. We will never get that $50 million, $60 million, or $80 million if we keep on this path. So please, people, think about the money that we need to run this city. And stop giving it away. Thank you.
Thank you. Honey Bryan, followed by Loretta Sharp.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. My name's Honey Bryan. My address is 2719 Rebella Way in Palm Beach Gardens. I am a commercial real estate broker by trade. I've been a commercial real estate broker in Palm Beach County my entire career. I grew up in Lake Worth. I moved to Lake Worth the day I was born. I lived in the city of Lake Worth my entire adult life. I was raised here with my family. I raised my family here until I moved away several years ago. However, to speak to Mr. Tim's comments, I'm the Director of Retail and Investments for the commercial real estate company that I work with. I do retail and investment sales and leasing all over the southeastern part of the state of Florida. Some of you may be familiar with the Wynwood section of Miami, which was one of the most blighted, distressed sections of Miami north of downtown, north of the Design District. It was an area where people avoided, it was crime-ridden, real estate values were down, going nowhere but down. Certain people that had insight into the benefit, the economic benefit that the arts bring to a community and shoring up a community and increasing property values had the foresight to make investment in that. Today, their Ferrari is coming there. The high-end retailers from Miami Beach that refuse to leave Miami Beach are now relocating to the Wynwood section. You can't buy a quarter acre in that area for less than $2 million. The property values have skyrocketed. They have huge art-centered events there. It totally turned around that section of town. Not only has it brought jobs, it's brought international attention to that area. Of course, it has increased the property values, thereby increased the tax base of the city of Metro Dade County. So in terms of the needs of the city going forward in economic development and bringing in revenues to support the improvements that the city understands are necessary for keeping the community alive and growing, an arts-based project of this nature is a no-brainer. It is a proven model. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Loretta Sharp, followed by Paul Fisher.
1311 South Conway. Well, I found it all by myself with no GPS on my car, and it's a mess. And it has been a mess for many years. And we now have people come in and say, we're going to put $1,700,000 in this mess that you have over on G and F Street. And we're going to bring in, the most exciting thing I've heard all night is a glass blower. Because no matter where I go, I always ask the concierge, is there a glass blower in this area? And I immediately go and see him, because it's fascinating to me. I have never been more optimistic about Lake Worth than I am tonight. I heard about the cottages, and I heard about the foundry and the glass blower. It's a win-win situation for Lake Worth. There is no way you can get hurt unless you don't make sure, and he's left the room, unless you don't make sure that the, I can't say it, Benzinter said you will pay taxes or the equivalent to taxes for the 19 years they have this under lease. And if that happens, it's a win-win situation. I'm very optimistic about what I've heard here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Fisher, followed by Claudia Sane Klein. I'm sorry, couldn't read it.
I'm a glass blower.
Good.
She'll get your number later.
I just got back from Seattle and Tacoma. I was with Dale Trujillo yesterday and through the weekend, and we were blowing glass at the Museum of Glass in Tacoma. And at the Museum of Glass in Tacoma, they have a public hot shop. So all this weekend, you can still probably see it online. All the glass blowing that was happening with Chihuly and the team was being broadcast live. And there's a big seating area, and what they were doing was selling tickets. So every hour, the room would change completely, and people would pay $20 an hour to come and watch Chihuly and everybody make this glass that we were making this weekend, which was a revisiting of the series we did about 35 years ago. My friend Joanna Sykes is one of the directors of the Museum of Glass in Tacoma. She worked her day off for about 16 years before this, professional projects director. And when I told her about this, she's very excited to see all sorts of ways that we could cooperate with the Museum of Glass. Jim Mongrain, who is Chihuly's main gaffer, which is the guy who blows what Dale, makes what Dale thinks of, along with about 8 or 10 other people. I told him about this, and he would love to be able to come here in the winter. And I have other friends like Martin Blank, a lot of famous established glass blowers, that if there was a place on the East Coast in the winter to come to blow glass, this would be a center, absolutely. And also the Hilltop program that you mentioned. What the Hilltop Glass Blowers program is however many years ago, 12, 15 years ago, Chihuly had the idea to put a hot shop in an inner city high school. And the kids who were gangbangers and on the street and at risk, they learned to blow glass. And they found that that was more exciting than a lot of the things that they were doing. And it was a very successful program where these kids learned to blow glass, they made glass, they sold the glass, they made money. And then Tony Iola from New Mexico wanted to do it down there. So the kids from Seattle Hilltop went down to teach the kids on the Red Hot blow glass. It's been a very, very successful program.
Thank you.
So we've got all the resources to make this a very successful hot shop.
Thank you very much.
Claudia Klein.
Hi there, I'm Claudia Jane Klein.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can't read my writing. But I'm just here to say that I'm just really thrilled to have this whole organization. I've been in Lake Worth renting a studio for 20 years on the railroad tracks at the other end of town. And I'm really glad to have some company, some other artists to be able to come in here and afford to work. It's very difficult to live, pay rent, and work, and for producing the artwork, and it is my work. I represent my work. I go all over to different cities, all over the state of Florida, and install artwork, Sarasota, and Miami, and other areas, and I haven't really been able to see much of artwork come in and out of Lake Worth. And this will enable the productivity and the expertise of having, professional artists in these facilities. Will draw a tremendous amount of other artists here to really create a really, truly an art-friendly city that, Lake Worth has always claimed to be, but has to have this growing factor to actually really create it, get it out on the street, and have people really interact with it. And this is just like a gift to have someone with Joanne's dedication, and I know Joanne for many, many years, and she's a fabulous artist and totally dedicated to something like this. And to have a person behind an organization of such magnitude and serious dollars to come in to your community, I think it's just a grace. So, I'm happy.
Thank you. Barbara Jean Weber, followed by Bruce Weber, no relation.
Be nice down here.
To Mr. Weber, always, he's adorable. I have a few somewhat kind of serious questions. First of all, I hate to watch the glass blower. A couple of questions and thoughts. It seems to be a very apt marriage of supporting the individuals who are there, who in fact will be both the artists and these companies, these foundries and what have you. I'd like to know on the graph that you gave, sir, which area is designated to public use that is, according to the lease, to remain open. And when they do have events and projects are leased out and art is there, I'm also pleased to see, and I believe it's on page 31, the city manager has discretion to amend the lease and look at the lease and make adjustments. I was a little concerned, art is a very independent subject, and hopeful that if anything is out of sorts or inappropriate, that indeed it can be stopped. So I am pleased that there is leeway in there. When there are events, I wanted to inquire who takes care of the cleanup, and is there any extra police coverage? Also, I believe that the 501(c) status, it's intimated that it must be in continuous existence. So I was wondering, is somebody going to check up on that? Do we check up on it, and do we check up on the insurance policies that need to be maintained? The only other thing of concern was if there's damage, if it's totally wiped away, no problem, but if they're half damage, that the city is responsible for the damage. Let me see if I can find that section. Article 8, it does state rather clearly, so perhaps I'm misinterpreting something, so that can be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bruce Weber?
Oh, hi, you're right here.
Hi, how are you? I moved to Lake Worth 44 years ago. I rented a house on 2nd and F Street. I never knew that place was there. It's been sitting there empty for how many years? 35, 40 years. The Street Painting Festival helped put Lake Worth on the map. The artists in this town have helped put it on the map. Claudia Klein, the sculptress, did the mermaid at the base of the bridge. Street painting helped pay for that. She volunteered, some of her time and effort. And for 44 years, I've heard Lake Worth has so much potential. Potential is looking you right in the face. You cannot help this town get on the map, not just for street painting, but for Lake Worth itself. And, it shouldn't even be discussed. Let's just do it.
If you would, staff, could you address Ms. Weber's, not Mr. Weber's concern?
My
Yes.
wife is at home, by the way.
If I can recall all the points, we did want to, in the contract, leave a little bit of leeway, because you never know what the next art is going to be. It may be in 3D, computer, imaging, whatever. So we wanted to give some grace in the contract for what the next art form may be that could not be imagined, and didn't want to hamper the creativity that could be the next art form. I can't imagine, I'm not an artist, I don't have that creative mind. So we wanted some of that leeway. As we, as the city, still own the building, everything in the contract clearly states that They are our tenant. They are totally responsible for their own cleanup, their own insurance. Everything that is within that building is their responsibility. The maintenance, all of those things are their responsibilities. The city is not. They have to have their own insurance. They have to maintain the property. All of those things, they will be issued, certificate of occupancies, just like every other business in the city. All of the typical rules and regulation that applies to anyone else within the city are standard protocol. We are only the owner of the building. Every other standard operating procedure for just like any other business, any other company within the city apply, period.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
So what you're saying is that there will be zero cost to the city
Correct.
on any level at any time for the operation of that building?
You're absolutely correct, sir.
Thank you.
And the monies too, to address Mr. Tim's question earlier, the monies too that are equivalent to the tax equivalent are to be paid each and every year directly to the city over the course of that 19 3/4 years.
19 years and 364 days.
And 64 days.
1 day minus 20 years.
It's not a leap year that year, is it?
Probably.
Okay, just to
Sorry.
address your question, Mr. Tim, so.
Yes, sir.
And just a quick mention, just having Claudia part of this group, I've known Claudia for a long time, and like Bruce mentioned, she created that mermaid at the base of the bridge. She's a phenomenal artist. She does huge pieces, huge work, and she's been hard pressed to find somewhere local that she can really sink her teeth into and create these big pieces of art. So just having her part of this group, it makes it and brings it to a new level. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.